Welcome to In the Middle with Principal Hayward, the show where we learn about the personalities and the people that make Norton Middle School such a great place to come and work every day. Joining me on this episode is the Assistant Superintendent of the Norton Public Schools, Mrs. Jen O'Neill.
Hi, everybody.
So, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on probably since the outset of the show, and we had talked about it, and you gave me some I remember after the first episode, I got some positive words of encouragement. So coming from on high, it's appreciated.
Well, it's a lot of fun to watch the episodes and see, you know, all the great things that our staff has to say, and it's nice to be able to participate.
Yeah. Well, you were one of the first people I met in Norton, because when I did the hiring process, which was quite involved, it was, you know, it was a very thorough and professionally done process. I had come up through the ranks in Holbrook and had worked there for a long time. I was a teacher and a coach and so on. So I really wasn't exposed that much to the kind of interview and hiring process, and you spearheaded that. And whenever I walked into the library where we had that main interview and there was like 16 people around the big table, you were the only familiar face, but you made it feel very welcoming. And I'll always remember that as I kind of took like a big step for myself. And I'll never forget Manny at the other end of the table.
Yep.
I said, "What makes this place special?" And his answer was, "It's Norton." And that was pretty much, it's like, yeah, I know how I got here. It was on my GPS. But you were a very welcoming, familiar face, so I really appreciated that.
Absolutely.
You, as I mentioned, I came up through the ranks. You came up through the ranks in Norton.
Yes,
Tell me a bit about
I did.
that.
I have been in Norton officially for 15 years.
Okay.
But I was here even before that. I went to Stonehill College in Easton, and I did a lot of my pre-practicum work and practicum work at the Salmonese School in a first grade classroom over there. So I student taught at JCS, and
Okay, so you really came up.
Yes,
okay.
I really did. I graduated from Stonehill on Sunday, and earlier that morning before graduation, I got a phone call from the former principal at JCS, Mrs. Mary Brown. One of the teachers had a maternity leave coming up and needed to take time before they were ready, and so she offered me the last 6 weeks of school. So I took a maternity leave beginning the day after I graduated with a lot of kiddos, and then I was hired the following year as a second grade classroom teacher at JCS.
Okay, so the day you're graduating from college, you get a call that you're getting a job. So that's just how they draw it up.
Yes,
right? That's
exactly.
just how you plan it, that you get that.
And I started the very next day.
And you started the next day,
Yep.
so that probably curtailed the graduation celebration.
It did a little bit. I wasn't
Okay.
quite prepared.
Okay, so plans had to change a little bit
plans
probably.
changed a little bit. So.
But it was well worth it. It led to now 15 years in.
Yes.
And you're kind of number two to the district. So that's
So I was a teacher at JCS for 8 years, officially, in second grade classroom teacher, and I left there in the fall of 2011 to take over the role of the Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Yeah.
So my role focused on all aspects of teaching and learning for K to 12 in all content areas. And then 2 years ago, Dr. Baeta changed my title from Director of Curriculum to the Assistant Superintendent. And my role has changed a little bit.
And he was probably changing your job all along the way before the title, because I think you were
yes.
doing a host of different things.
The job hasn't changed
So
that much. But
okay.
the title has changed.
Okay, but it was encompassing a lot of those duties typical elsewhere. One of the things, you know, I left the classroom, I think about 2008, and I feel in some ways I learned more about teaching now in the second part of my career than I ever knew when I was in the classroom and so on. Tell me some things you've learned about teaching in general and instruction since leaving the classroom.
I say that all the time. I wish I knew then what I know now, and I feel like I would have been such a better teacher and being able to advocate for my students in ways that I probably didn't at that time. One of the things that I'm always so impressed with when I go into classrooms at all levels are just the relationships that teachers have with their students, and the ability that they have to meet the needs of every single learner in such creative ways. And a lot of times it's just outside the box thinking that maybe you wouldn't have thought about it from that perspective. That's always so impressive to me. The other thing that I'm always really interested to see, especially at the secondary level, because I was an elementary classroom teacher, is the passion that our teachers have for their content and taking that content and really making it livable for students with those real world applications.
Yeah.
It's something that I really didn't know before, and I always joke, especially when we visit math classrooms, there's a reason I taught second grade math. It wasn't that complicated. But our staff just is able to really go out and make such great connections for kids that they're walking out of the room with ownership of that material in a way that I wish I had had opportunities to view my colleagues when I was a classroom teacher.
Yeah, and you get to see the whole like K to 12 lens. I haven't had that opportunity yet, but even seeing like 6 to 12, and probably district 7 to 12, for middle school teachers, for high school teachers, I would do this just like you were describing. I would say, how do you connect it to the real world? Because the high school kids, but for middle school kids, I kind of twist the question a bit. I say, how do you connect it to their world? Because they don't live in the real world yet.
No, they're in their own world.
Because middle school's kind of in their own world. But as you go up, you're really able to then really make that real world connection. And oftentimes what draws me into the room is just I'm interested in what's going on.
I think education has changed so much from when you and I were in school because we didn't have the technology that our kids today have. So often, I mean, we were exposed to teaching that it was a lot of memorization. Remembering important dates and facts and people and formulas that our kids really don't need to memorize these days. They have a phone, they have a Chromebook, they're able to get that information. We no longer are the owners of that. So it's really important for us as educators to kind of shift the focus a little bit and work on skill-based teaching for our students, really helping them to connect the practical application of what they're learning in the classroom to the real world. We always ask that question, well, when am I ever going to use this? And really being able to kind of catch kids off of the pass and say, this is how you can use this. So.
And tell me about your favorite teacher. Now, for someone like you in your position, usually when I've asked this question, and I'm always curious because I think people kind of model themselves, or like, when I first started teaching, I thought about my favorite teacher and said, I want to teach just like that person. Different content area and stuff. But for you, this could even apply to teachers that you see just in your whole K to 12 lens.
My
but
gosh.
you could tell me tell me about one of your favorites. A little single makes it so narrowing, but tell me about some of your favorite teachers or things that you've seen done.
So in my own educational experience, I have a few teachers that impacted me in a really positive way. One, when I was a second grader myself.
Okay, wow.
I went to Catholic school my entire life. So my first, entrance into public school was when I was teaching.
Wow.
I know, right?
That's very interesting.
It is a little interesting.
You advocate so well. I've always known you as someone who really advocates for public education and that type of stuff.
Well, I'll tell you why. But I'll finish with this first.
Okay.
So I had a second grade classroom teacher at St. Monica's in Methuen. Her name was Miss Carney, and she was young. And my favorite thing about her was that it was all about relationships and all about the kids in front of her. And she was just one of those people who just really took the time to get to know her students, and our classroom was like a family. And I still remember feeling that way 30 years later. When I was in college, I had a professor at Stonehill. His name was Albert Cullum. He's actually a published author as well. And when I had him, I don't want to lie, he was in his early 80s. And he taught classroom theater and children's literature. So this is a man who was in his early 80s and getting down under a desk and pretending to be the troll from Billy Goat's Gruff. And acting out the whole dynamic. He was one of those people who, it's not about me, it's about me giving you the best of what I can to make the connections and to make the learning memorable for you. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, this poor man's not going to get off the ground.
Like
we're going to have to get him. But it wasn't about him. It was just about making the content come alive for his students. And he passed away right after I graduated from Stonehill. And I still think about him all the time and what a huge impact he made on me as an educator.
Awesome. So a couple of those things that you mentioned, it's like one of the sayings that I often kind of think about or kind of, pops in my mind. They don't care what you know till they know that you care. And so many times like a situation or something comes up that just kind of bubbles to the front of my mind. And then also, people will remember how you made them feel, not necessarily what you taught them. It's more or less a feeling. It's not that you mentioned in second grade, she taught me how to color in the lines or do. I remember my big accomplishment in second grade. I did a lowercase cursive Q. I'll never forget how proud I was. I went up, I did this on the board. For some reason, it's like the only thing I remember.
About second grade.
But, you know, that was the bit of it. But I remember I felt really good because I got like some props from my teacher.
You got some praise.
Hey, I did the hard one, the lowercase Q cursive. And that was when we did cursive writing.
We still do cursive writing.
Oh, we still do cursive writing. Okay.
We do.
All right, so it was, yeah, it's how they make you feel, and that sticks with you.
Absolutely, and you actually said that to me last week when we were talking about some of the work we're doing in district around social emotional health and well-being of all of our students.
Yeah, this is a great segue. I was going to ask you, what are some of our initiatives that we're working on right now from your office?
We always have a lot going on coming from the Office of Teaching and Learning. Right now, we're spending a lot of time looking at the structures we have in place for all students in regards to social emotional health and well-being, some mental health, and making sure that our students have a strong understanding of those core concepts: self-awareness, social awareness, self-advocacy. And we had a long conversation last week when we got our SEL working group together, which is a representative group of...
Huge group, too.
It's a good-sized group. It's about 24 educators across the district, all the way from preschool down up through the high school. We have some family representatives, some administrative leadership representatives as well. And talking about how our teachers are really bombarded with a lot that they have to cover. You know, we have to deliver content, we have to integrate technology, effectively for our students. We have to make those real-world connections and work on skills, and giving them another curriculum is a lot to ask. So we looked at it from the perspective of what do all of our students need to have in order to be ready to learn academically. And we talked about that social emotional health and well-being as almost like the dinner plate that you're going to kind of make sure you have in your hands first before you start moving through the buffet line. So if we refocus our thinking around social emotional learning and say, okay, our students need to have this piece first. They need to be able to, say, I need support, I need help. They need to learn to control their emotions. And that's for all of our students, and for a lot of our adults as well. Then we'll be much more successful in helping them to master some of the academic content.
And the way you guys described it, because I know coming out of that group, I read some of the stuff and talked to some of the people, that being the plate, the foundation, and it's really like social emotional. It is with everybody, because there's days I'm off. There's days that everybody comes in, and for that moment in time, having a teacher in front of you who's cognizant of those things and understands this first before anything else. Anything else is going to have to include this and the whatever else it is, whether it's math content, social studies. And it's really just having a staff that's adaptable, flexible, able to overcome and know what a student needs before they know they need it. And that's the real out of it. And social emotional seems like, it really can apply to anybody, because on any given day a person can come in and be having just that day, and they might never have that day again, but are we ready for that? And I think this is a great initiative that you guys are kind of spearheading out of Central. I
think so too, and I think it's applicable for all of our students, because as you said, everyone has that day. We've all had that day where either you're feeling, at maximum capacity stress-wise, you're feeling really down on yourself and your abilities, you've had a fight with a friend, or, and saying that it's okay to step back and kind of help students to get to a place where they're ready to learn. Because a lot of times students will come in and they're not there. They need to be able to get that plate situated before they can start adding to it. And I think that's something that we're going to be talking a lot about over the next few weeks. One of the things we're doing right now, it's a professional development opportunity for our staff, is we're conducting a online book club. We're all reading Lost at School by Dr. Ross Green. And it's really a focus on reframing our thinking around students with social emotional needs and with behavioral needs, and talking about, okay, we're so quick to punish students and to penalize them for their behavior, but we don't often spend time helping to build their skills in regards to what behaviors are expected and how to strengthen those skills. So we have about 55 staff members that are participating in this book study, and tonight's our first Twitter chat. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been interesting to see so many people excited about
so
something.
I can expect my phone making noise
Yes,
all night as you
your
guys
phone
go
will be
back
blowing
and
up all
forth.
night. Yep.
Yep. So those are great initiatives, and we're busy. We'll get back to it. But part of coming on the show is we learn a little bit about you.
Okay.
And I ask some just questions just
All
to
right.
find out more about you. So what was your first, what was the last, and what's the next concert you plan to go to?
Okay.
So your
My first concert I ever went to, I was 8 years old. I saw New Kids on the Block at the Boston Garden.
Okay.
It was fantastic. The last concert.
Who went with you? So 8 years old.
One of my friends, I think I was in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
It was her parents got her tickets for her birthday, and they took herself and 3 friends to go see the concert.
Yeah.
So we went with her parents.
Okay, with her parents.
Yeah, with her parents.
Yeah.
The last concert I went to, I have to think about this. I think it was Kenny Chesney at Gillette.
Okay.
My husband and I are big country fans. We like to go.
All right.
We try to go every year. Doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
And then this summer, I actually have tickets to 2 different concerts.
Okay,
we're going to see the Zac Brown Band at Fenway Park.
Nice.
With my brother and his girlfriend, and then we're taking our kids to go see Taylor Swift at Gillette, but they don't know yet. It's a surprise. So. I don't know that they're big watchers of In the Middle. So.
Oh, okay. So I thought they might be watching In the Middle. I said, this goes out. People are seeing it everywhere.
I don't think they're watching.
All right. Okay.
No
all
offense.
right. Well, we'll have to make sure that that's taken care of in case if you show them your episode here.
Yep.
Another initiative that I've talked about with prior guests, and I know you're heavily involved in not just like this is an involvement. You have full commitment because you've gone overseas. We have a travel initiative in the district.
Yeah.
So tell me about your involvement in that and some of the things that are coming down the road for that.
So right now we have a global education initiative happening at the in Norton Public Schools, and it's kind of started to branch off in different directions. So both Dr. Bayetta and I have had the opportunity to travel internationally with colleagues and other educators. He spent some time in Barcelona, Spain on a language immersion trip. I had the opportunity to go to Finland and tour the Finnish education system with colleagues from all over the United States.
And I'm correct that that education system ranks very high in the world and is one of, is it the top or it's close there too?
It kind of varies every year, but it's very close to the top.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to kind of do some cool takeaways of what we could bring back to our schools here in Norton. And then last year I had the opportunity to chaperone our very first Norton endorsed global education trip for students at the high school. We spent 12 days visiting Lisbon, Portugal, and then both Seville and Madrid, Spain. And we took 21 students, and when I tell you, it was life-changing for me, but it was so life-changing for our students.
In what ways?
Just being able to get out of the bubble that we live in and explore other cultures and communities and kind of see the differences and the similarities. We had students with us, the majority of the students take Spanish in school, so they were able to utilize that language that they've been practicing. And I haven't taken Spanish since college, but even by the end of the week, I was able to not necessarily have conversations, but I could understand what was happening around me because you're being immersed in that language. And so as a product of that, our high school students have developed a global education club at the high school. We have about 35 students that are involved in the club. They meet once a month. They do different projects and outreach regards to global citizenship. And we've established a global education certificate for Norton High School. So graduates can follow a particular course pathway at the high school, do some community service around global education or global citizenship, do some sort of a tour, have a foreign exchange student stay at their house, and they can graduate with a certificate of global competency.
So what you're describing is so much more than a field trip.
Yes, it's so much
this
more.
Is not a field trip that just happens to be, that's the destination of the field trip. This is so many other elements and everything that are involved in this.
So we've tried to be really careful about making it more than just a trip that kids can go on, but really focusing on tours that have real clear connections to teaching and learning and to the curriculum that we're working on here in Norton. So this coming summer, actually, during April vacation, Dr. Kiefer from the high school is taking 13 students, and they're going on a service learning trip to the Dominican Republic, where they're going to be working with students in DR and doing some community service there. Mrs. Winsper, who's our Director of Instructional Technology, is taking some students from Norton to Italy and then Berlin over the summer, and they're going to a global conference on the importance of technology in society. And the kids are at this conference with students from all over the world, and they're working on some project-based learning and design thinking to solve problems regarding technology. So there's a lot going on. Plus, as a lot of our viewers know, we had students here from China for 2 weeks.
That's right,
bringing that culture into our community and partnering our own students with these exchange students and creating that bond and partnership. So who knows, maybe our students will be going to China someday as well.
Yeah, I think we definitely, a lot of kids got inspired and curious about those students when they came. And one of the questions I asked when I went into the room, saying like, "Hey, we're going to have these guests here," and I told the kids, I want them. They're here. They're sending their best to see our best.
Yep.
So I want to see that out of you for the next 2 weeks. So, kind of just met with the students first, and I asked them. I said, "How many of you will be brave enough to go to a different country away from your parents, all the way to China?" And I didn't get that many hands.
No.
And but I feel by the end that would have changed. I
totally
just
agree.
feel that would have changed just by how they saw those kids adapt and react and
I
that
think
type of thing.
our students are living in a global society. We have such access that didn't exist when we were in school in regards to social media and conferencing and all of those things that you can communicate with people all over the world. But it doesn't necessarily mean you understand their perspective. So giving students the opportunity to travel and to welcoming students into our school community breaks down those barriers. So I think that it really helps. I think ultimately will help our students be more successful in college and career, because that component really isn't going away.
I might have to jump in on one of these. This sounds fun. Mrs. Winsper's going. I just have to get over my fear of flying. Flying. Any cruises heading out? If there's a cruise heading out.
Not yet. We'll see if we can put you on a bus and bring you somewhere else.
A bus trip. Nice, nice. If you had to take a 10-hour flight, which it sounds like you might have to with all your travel and this initiative, who would you most like to have to sit to for a 10-hour? Sit next to for a 10-hour flight?
Anybody in the world?
Anybody in the world,
goodness.
living or dead?
This is a hard question.
Well, it's in the middle. It's hard hitting. Okay. Yeah. With no edits.
Hold on.
No edits.
Hold on.
10 hours. You're on a flight.
10 hours. One of the things I'm actually really interested in is history.
Yes.
So I like to read a lot of historical fiction.
Yeah.
So I would probably like to sit with some historian that could tell me about.
That's a great one. Just a storyteller.
Someone sit next to a storyteller, someone who could really. I've read a lot of books about royalty in Europe. And I always am so fascinated with all the stuff that goes on there.
No,
I don't know. I'd say some sort of historian. No one specific, but
but some type of published historian or someone who makes a living as a historian. That's a good answer because I've had history teachers on here, and I know I started as a history teacher, and I always enjoyed history because of that storytelling aspect and how they can draw you in and just. That would be a good person to spend a flight next to because, the storytelling and how they bring you in. Question, can school be considered rigorous without homework?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, how so?
I think that homework is often, in my experience as a student, as a teacher, and as a parent who has school-age children, I don't often find homework to be rigorous. I find that homework is often busy work and a little bit tedious. And I don't know that it's really deepening the understanding of our students. And I don't want to paint that statement with a broad brush because I do know that we have a lot of teachers that give our students quality homework.
But time is limited,
think,
so really
yeah.
trying to hone that in so we don't send any. I mean, there's always going to be some, and there's some stuff, but really trying to hone it in where what does get sent out of the building has a value in and of itself beyond just 5 points or whatever it is.
And I think that within the classroom is our best opportunity to really provide our students with rigorous instruction and expectations.
Yeah.
And I think that homework, it should be different for students.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a student who's really struggling with a particular concept, perhaps, you know, getting them to refresh their, you know, thinking a little bit and some practice is not a bad thing. But the student who has the concept and it's mastered doesn't need that same practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge for teachers, because they have so much to do throughout the school day that it's, you know, asking them to differentiate, we do all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, it is that, because
too.
our teachers, and I know you give them props and you've seen it all K to 12, they're able to give kids what they need and kind of differentiate and you know, keep that carrot just far enough out in front of this kid, which is different for that kid. But homework kind of, just by the nature of it, sets them up to where all of a sudden everything has to funnel into one thing.
Right.
Whereas everything else they're doing doesn't.
It's differentiated, absolutely.
And but you know, there's always the time, and there's always the ability to be able to do that. But that is a challenge, because all kids are stretched so thin with their time.
Are. And
the leagues, the sports, the activities, and that's just another element of how can we figure out how to do that better.
And I think that's so true, because our students are 100% like scheduled to the max. My own kids are scheduled to the max. One of the things that I think was something that I tried to do a lot when I was an elementary teacher, and I think it's still applicable to middle school and even to high school, is you want students to read every day. And you know, that might look a little bit different at the middle school level, but you know, creating students that are readers and who are interested in, you know, reading fiction or informational text to get more information is so important. And I would always have my students work on their foundational math skills. So at the lower level, that is fact practice. And I know at the middle school level that some kids still need that fact practice. Because
you need to build the toolbox up.
You do. So to me, I always think that those are good things to do, regardless of what the student ability is, because those can be easily differentiated.
Okay, we talked a little bit about your school. What were you like in school? Any activities or hobbies that you do that no one knows about, or when you were in school, you're a student?
When I was a student, I probably did not put as much effort into my academics as I.
That's a real nice way of saying it. I am going to read right through that. That's a real nice way of saying it. So continue on that line.
My parents were both educators.
Okay.
They were both teachers. They were both administrators. And my mother used to say to me, "Imagine what you could do if you tried." Okay. So
it wasn't prioritized.
No, it wasn't prioritized. I was a very social, social butterfly, if you will. I did theater in high school. I like to do.
You did theater? Stage crew, star of the show?
No, I like to be on stage.
Okay. What were some of the plays or things?
Okay, so we did South Pacific, we did Godspell, we did Bye Bye Birdie. Yeah. So those were things that I like to do. What roles did you have? Oh my gosh. Just like chorus roles, just fun. I don't like being the center of attention, but I was very happy to, you know, get out there and sing a song and be in the crowd. Yeah. That's my style. Yeah. I like that. I'm trying to think what else. I'm a huge reader. I love to read. That's something that's never gone away. I was that kid in school that the teacher would be teaching at the front of the room, and I would have my book inside my desk, and I would be reading whatever book I was interested in at that time.
Yeah, I used to do stuff like that too. I would be drawing helicopters and make them pretend I was, you know, Rambo saving things, working on the math. Yeah, not so much. You know, so I had my times where too I say, oh, you know, if I only applied myself. I know. Or more importantly, if I only had an engaging teacher. I always look here like, you know, I'd love to be down in Mike Kramer's room when I was in 7th grade. Yeah. He still got the sawdust. I'd love to take, you know, some of the classes that I get to see in. So
it's one of my favorite rooms to go into.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think the education was very different for us. You know, we sat in rows. The majority of my teachers were nuns. Yeah. And I had some
Did they have
teachers
Google Classroom?
There was no Google Classroom. There was Nothing.
No,
there was no technology.
No sister,
at all. No, nothing.
Sister A's Google Classroom?
No, it was like a chalkboard, and
Okay.
like maybe if you were lucky, they would roll the movie cart
Yeah.
down the hallway every
Yeah.
once in a while. But it was, I mean, my school was very small. It was, 8A and 8B, and
Yeah.
you went to school with 30 kids, and that was
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
it's a very, and I think that's one of the reasons I've always been such an advocate for public education. My parents are both public educators and administrators. I just feel that our students have so many opportunities that I did not have.
Yeah.
I went to all-girls Catholic high school. We didn't have gym in high school. And
Yeah.
the reason we didn't have gym is because it was on the second floor and there were classrooms beneath it.
Yeah.
So it was too distracting to those classrooms to have
Yeah.
gym going on all day
Yeah.
long. So I've always said that, when I had my own family, we would move to a community where we had faith in the school system, and our
Yeah.
kids would go to public school.
Yeah.
Because my brother went to public high school.
Yeah.
We both had totally different experiences, and
Yeah.
he was in, band and played baseball, and
Yeah.
he had just had opportunities that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I think that's personally what
Yeah.
we wanted for our children.
Yeah, and we see it every day here. I mean, you look at any of the Twitter feeds from teachers within the school community, the kids just have tons of
They
opportunities.
really do.
So,
And they get, there's more and more opportunities every day.
Yeah.
I'm always so amazed at even the student initiative to
Yeah.
say, I'm really passionate about this. Can we start a club? And
Yeah.
our, the staff here at the middle school and at the high
Yeah.
school are always so willing and open to try new things and to
Yeah.
give students an outlet for their interests and their passions that
Yeah.
you don't see that everywhere.
No,
You really don't.
You don't. Mrs. O'Neill, I
Yeah.
would like to thank you so much for coming on to the show
Thanks for
today.
having me. This
I
was
think
fun.
you'll be a return guest because you do lead so many initiatives, and I think that some of the stuff K to 12, being able to see the lens, even though this is a middle school show,
Yep.
I think really making the connection between how the Yell comes into our school and we go out to the high school. For me, seeing the big picture, and for people who might tune into this show,
Mm-hmm.
I think your insight and perspective on the full lens is going to be valuable to us. So thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
Great.
Thanks.
Mrs. O'Neill, Jennifer O'Neill, the Assistant Superintendent of the Norton Public Schools.